All right, we're getting ready to go. All right. Hello. And welcome to this is in the More Than Just a Movie time slot, but we're not doing movies today. If you tuned in to More Than Just a Movie last week, you already know we are celebrating 50 years of hip hop. Now, Leroy and I were talking about hip hop all last episode to the point where, of course, we have to talk about it and have a show dedicated to hip hop because hip hop is really the soundtrack of our lives, our childhood. You know, I talked about last week when I was talking about the chicken tastes like wood and I knew and then I just was talking to my oldest daughter and she was rapping every lyric. I was like, how do you know this? She said, Mom, because you play the stuff all the time since we were little. She was like, a hip, a hop, a hibbit, a hibbit. She said, it sounds like a nursery rhyme. I said, that's because you're comparing it to what you hear now. But my daughter was rapping all the lyrics. And as I talked about last week, my aunt would be like, how do you know every single lyric to, it's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder. Or Rapper's Delight or Apache. So we're going to be talking about all of that. And we're probably, because we can't focus on 50 years clearly, but we're going to focus mainly on the 70s and 80s and maybe some 90s. So all y'all new hip hop heads, we probably ain't going to be talking about what's out right now. I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you.
They ain't got a chance.
Come on. I needed this show because it was a very emotional day for me. So I had to come repping the ladies of hip hop. I don't know if you could see that, but that's Salt and Pepper's here. My mic sound nice. Check one. And then I even thought about, Leroy, putting on a Kango, but my ponytail won't let me be great. But I do have
on you ain't getting that on there.
No, but I do have my bamboo earrings. I don't have at least two pair on, but I got the one pair.
You got at least two pair?
That's what I said. I don't got at least two pair. But this is my host, my co-host, Leroy McKenzie Jr., Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr.
Where the Fendi bag at?
My Fendi bag and a bad attitude. I'm trying to get my lollipop. I should have got my lollipop because I'm standing on the bus stop sucking on the lollipop. I'm trying to get that. You know what I mean? But I got to get my new edition Bobby Brown button on my sleeve. I do have a new edition Bobby Brown button, though. That I do have. We have a special guest coming on in a couple of minutes too, because this was a hip hop show. And no, it's not going to be a favorite rapper. I thought about that too. But the person that I have coming on, this person knows all things hip hop. And hip hop brought us together in a certain way. Well, I'll allow this person to tell you when she comes. So I'll let that. But all right, Leroy, when we talked about getting ready to do this show, what did you think?
Well, honestly, like one of our favorite movies was Brown Sugar, and asked the question, when did you fall in love with hip hop?
That's the question I was going to start with.
I just thought about when was the first time that I heard this music thing called hip hop. What was this sound that nobody at that time, and you're talking late 70s for us now. I think hip hop probably started a little earlier in the Bronx. I believe that's where it started, South Bronx. They were listening to it. Yeah. They were listening to it there or had created it there because that's where it was created and where it got its beginning before it got down here to us here in Maryland. So, but I remember it was late 70s, maybe like somewhere around 70, maybe 70, between 78, 79.
So it was 73 when it officially started because this is the 50th year of hip hop. But once we started finding out about it, it was like 1976, 1975.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
roundabout. And of course in New York City, in the Bronx. And we want to give
You gotta remember,
respect is due.
at that time we were only, you gotta remember we were only at 70, 73. You were you had just born.
Right.
Yeah. You were just
Right.
born. I was out in 73. I was 4. So we didn't, of course we didn't know anything about hip hop then, but as we got a little, into our later you call adolescence, childhood, that 6, 8, 10 years old, by the time I was 10, that was really when, 79 was when I really understood the music that and really started liking. That was the Rapper's Delight. That was the Apache Bit Jam on It. That was when all of that started resonating with
Wiggy,
me,
wiggy,
where I
wiggy,
could,
wiggy.
right.
Shut up.
When I started understanding that and realized what it was. This music was different from what we were going, because our parents were listening to a lot of the, the R&B, maybe some jazz. Other than that, in the 70s, that was what they listened to. OJs and all of that stuff. But here comes this new style of music that has turntables and a DJ. What is this noise?
Man, I grew up in Jersey, and hip hop had me in a chokehold. From everything from the Lee jeans to the name belt to the way we spoke to my hairstyles. We're gonna talk about all of that when I look like MC Light, maybe one day, Salt and Pepper, both of them the next day. But my guest, we have a guest coming on. I'm just gonna call her Professor. And I'm going to allow her to introduce herself when she gets here. But my daughter, when I just reminded my daughter I was doing this show, and I told her who the guest was, she was like, Mom, every single day you would come home talking about her and talking about this class. This was a class that I took in college and CCBC, and it was one of the best classes I ever had. I knew all the answers, the stuff that I didn't know, I wanted to hear. I contributed often. She'll tell you that. I knew stuff in real time. Like, this was a class that was probably one of in my whole educational background process. This was one of my favorite classes. And this was years ago. I just reminded my daughter, she was like, you came home every day talking about that class and talking about different things. And you talking about a final, a project. Oh, I was so happy to do it with the women of hip hop. So I am going to get my guest on the line, and I'm so excited to have her here because she breathes hip hop. She writes about hip hop. She teaches hip hop in college. She is a brilliant mind, not only in this area, but her opinion, her views, her educational background. I'm just going to get her on the line. We're going to get her on the line right now.
Hello. Please state your name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to connect you.
Kendéll, Lenice.
She ain't coming on video.
No, she's on the move. She can't go. It's going to be a dial-in. Hello.
What's going on?
Can you hear her okay, Leroy?
No.
You can't hear her? He's just
I can barely hear you. Go ahead.
You're not going to be on video. He's upset about that.
I know. I'm so. I do not get on IG as frequent as I should, so I got the message late and in between. But I wanted to hop on and support the sister and the queen, most certainly for all her recent accomplishments, and support you guys on this lovely conversation that is needed and excited to be a part of.
Thank you so much for, however I can get you on here. Tell the people who you are and tell the people your relationship with hip hop. And if you could talk about the class, because I loved your class. If I didn't get an A in that class, I would have been kicking and screaming. Okay.
I appreciate it. My name, I go by Dr. T.L. Osborne, and I wrote and published a book called The Hip Hop Lectures. based on me teaching a course in hip-hop history at the Community College of Baltimore County. I think around 2012 I started with the class, I think around 2006 maybe, but I've been a lifelong hip-hop head. I grew up with it. I heard you guys at the beginning of the show talk about your journey and path in the culture, and for me, it was, I knew hip-hop lyrics before I knew scriptures growing up, so that's my sort of journey through that, and it prepared me for life. The way I hustle, the way I move, my focus, my awareness, and my insights actually are all derived from various hip-hop lyrics and albums. So I am a hip-hop enthusiast. I believe in the culture and the value of it. And I came to know Kendéll in my class, our evening class at that. I was always hesitant to teach evening classes because, you know, people showing up. But we had a full house every single week and in the evening. And it just made the experience even better and, you know, valuable, I think, to all of the students. And I, you know, always continue to learn from that, even when I reflect on it. I'm not currently at CCBC. I've moved on from there, but I still participate in promoting the culture in a more independent way and a more, you know, not a constrictive kind of way where it's just based on grades currently.
Yeah, and I love that. I got two questions. I want to know when you first fell in love with hip hop, but I want to know what kind of student was I, and when I was in there, what were you really thinking? What were your thoughts back then? Because we couldn't be cool like that, because you were my professor.
I never break the code only because I was taught that if you break it once, you got to break it with everybody, and so it's no way to be fair in that, but. My first fell in love, I think I might have shared this with you all in class, but my older sister took me to a P. Diddy and the Family concert. It was so inappropriate. I think I was maybe 13 or between 10 and 13. And it was all the, you know, bad boy clan there. And it was a school night. I don't know what was going on with my mom, why she, you know, let me go. But my sister had tickets and we were not far from the front row. And that concert had everything. I came back with a contact. It was a lot, but just seeing like just the culture, the people, the vibe, the energy, and, you know, hearing all of the different music, I just fell in love with it. And, you know, even though it was, you know, what many consider raunchy, it to me was real. And even in its raunchiness, it was, you know, teaching, you know, how to be a lady, how things work, how you may be perceived, how to protect yourself. And those are the things I think sometimes get lost in just the visual aesthetic of the culture when it's, you know, hypersexual or different things. But you as a student, Kendéll, I was a little nervous because if I'm not mistaken, and my memory serves correctly, you were afraid to write. And I think that's so powerfully interesting, given, you know, congratulations on your new book and stuff.
Oh no, that wasn't me. I wasn't afraid to write. That wasn't me.
About that and your voice. Yes, what'd you say?
I don't know if that was me afraid to write because I like to write. I don't know. I might have been nervous about something else. I don't know, but I don't know about the writing.
I remember that. I don't know if it was the academic, but I remember that part being nervous. It could have been the format of the paper.
Oh, that, you know what? That you're probably absolutely right because I was returned. Okay. That part, you have a great memory. And what, you know why? Because this was my return back to college. And it had the MLA and the different ways to write. And when I was in college before, there wasn't a certain way to write in the 80s. And I remember when I entered back in college, that part did make me nervous. So you got a good memory. You're absolutely right.
Okay,
so not the content.
For a second, I was
no.
Like, because it was, so I'm going to tell you why I remember it. Because when I hand this stuff out in the beginning, it's two types of students. I was limited to that. It's one that just takes it and be like, I'll look at it later when time closes or whatever. I'll look at it whenever. And then it's the other student. It's like, oh my God, what is this? I'm planning for other classes. I gotta fit. You were so on it that I was like, Kendéll, we got time. I'll make sure you're prepared. And you were so adamant in trying to make sure on day one. I said, why is she like your voice? You're going to be able to do everything you do writing. This is just a format to kind of help you flow with it. It's not meant to restrict you, but you were like, no, I need to know what you want. And I was like, we're going to go over it. And he was like, just no. And I said, is she afraid to write? Like, what is it? But like you said, with that being your starting journey, I can definitely understand. But I knew you weren't going to have a problem in the class, like from the beginning, just your breath, your energy, and just your spirit in general. So you definitely wasn't a difficult student, but once you got in your groove and you got comfortable, I wasn't worried about you at all. I was like, she'll be fine. If nobody else shows up, we still gonna have a bomb class. So that's how I felt with that. So.
Man, Professor T, you got a great memory, because I think that might have been my second year in. I think that was my last semester or one. It was around that, and I remember. Just like I said, the writing, that can come naturally, but when you want me to do it in the different formats, and that was like Chinese to me. So probably when I saw that syllabus, I probably came to, that sound about right, that I came to you the first day.
You did, and it's fun, but a lot of people do that, and it's weird, but I didn't like, you were asking me questions, but I didn't feel like you needed it, if that makes sense. I know you wanted it, but I didn't know how you perceived it, because I'm normally not as nonchalant when I know a student really needs it. But for some reason, I was like, why is she so pressing it? She's going to be more than fine.
Yeah.
So, and then later on, I would learn that you are a writer. And like you said, your voice. And I, understood that it's just, that part that's a guide. But after that, I was like, why is she so, like, on? First of all, I'm not going to let her fail. That's not even an option. But, yeah, like, yeah, so that was the thing that stood out to me from then on, and just for me, our bond. So it was like, you knew what, I trusted you had the gift to do what you do without knowing that you were a writer as well as you are in publishing books. So that was just a little intuitive and a gift to kind of see beforehand. But I definitely wasn't worried about you. But great student, great personality, prompt, never missed anything, just made it enjoyable coming to work.
I appreciate that. And I'm telling you, even when they talk about kids, as I work with kids now, when they say how professors or teachers can leave an imprint, it could even be as an adult when they're teaching you something that you love. I just remember playing games in there. I remember our final project. I think I did the Women of Hip Hop, as I'm wearing my Salt and Pepper shirt.
You did.
And I went through the journey. I would love to find that right now. If you ever have that, you ever find it, you got to let me know. But I'm not going to keep you. I thank you so much for calling in, because as soon as I said I was going to do this show, I was like, let me see Professor T. Let me see what's going on with her.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you thinking about me and having. I do want to say one more thing, because you did ask me to, share how I'm moving. Dr. McKenzie, if you can give me a few more seconds, to just share that I am really big on, trying to promote the culture. And it's so perfect that you mention it, because I'm trying to spread it on all educational levels currently. So I have recently spoke, and I'm expanding with a church, the Psalmist Baptist Church. Actually, I recently spoke at their Black History Month.
That's Leroy's church.
Because
that's Leroy's church.
Churches are into the culture. They are now accepting what they once pushed away. The children of that created the culture was sort of pushed out of church. So to come 50 years full circle and see that is nothing short of amazing. And part of my goal is to really try to get Hip Hop Week in as many schools as possible, not just Black History Month, but to really start promoting it overall and in the curriculum full blast. So I'm doing little steps. I'm trying to get some things in the works for the summer and camps and different things, but that is what I'm working on currently.
I love that. And if you need any help, if you need me for anything, I'm serious. Call me.
Yeah, I got you.
Call me.
And please know that I will call without hesitation.
And I'm serious.
I'm not going to call you till it's time.
And I'm ready. And I want you to tell people, yes, I'm serious. I'm not just saying, you already know I'm not just saying that. I'm serious. But tell them.
I understand.
Tell them about your book quickly. And also, if you want to know more, I interviewed her a few years ago on my podcast, Shine with Kendéll and Lenice. So you can go back and listen to that and find out more. We had an extensive conversation about hip hop. You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, why'd you keep testing my memory? You making me feel like I'm older than hip hop.
No, because you got, I mean, people got lives, people got stuff going on, you know, so I don't want to feel like I'm.
But I'm not on wood, I'm good. But yes, the hip hop lectures came out. I'm in the process of condensing it to one book, which has both volumes in it, and eventually a remix to it. But one of the things that I've learned while writing is a lot of times we can be ahead of people accepting. Just like it's amazing that hip hop is 50 years old, but it's also amazing how much it's not promoted within and accepted still historically, and it's relevant. So the hip hop lectures just go through the history, volume 1 from Africa through the different musical chapters, Harlem Renaissance, rock and roll, and volume 2 focuses on hip hop culture in its beginning. And I sort of am a person that branded the elements beyond the 5 that we typically know, to include sort of hustling, fashion, technology aspects that, you know, haven't been officially input into the culture. So definitely promoting that. My Instagram is the Hip Hop Lectures, and so feel free to stop on and check out some things. But thank you, Kendéll and Dr. McKenzie, for your time today and just letting me share a little bit of my piece to the contribution of the culture and you guys' show.
Yes, we're so happy to have you. Leroy, you want to say anything before we end?
No, I think that's great. And the professor talked about it. I love the fact that this genre of music has become, and we'll get more into this. It's gotten to the point where it is being taught in schools, where it's being taught in colleges and being picked up. And she even mentioned even more being taught in, in churches, which I can see because a lot of the leadership, think about it, a lot of the leadership is us, those that grew up on hip hop. So I think they're more open to it, and being able to do that, and just our experiences of growing up with this music that folks didn't think would be around. Oh, it's just a fad. It's not gonna last, and it is so ingrained. It has become a culture of its own and taken on a body of its own and everything like that. And I appreciate what she's bringing in, teaching, the younger generation, that generation that sees it a little differently, but may not see it through this lens. We were, and I was thinking about this, Doc, and y'all tell me what y'all think, that, it was, hip hop was born in the 70s. It was nurtured in the 80s, and then it was perfected in the 90s and the 2000s.
Commercialized too.
Yeah, that's when, and after the 2000s, it's kind of, if you ask me, and I don't know if she'll agree with this or not, it's kind of dipped off and dipped down. But to me, at the height of it was that late 80s going into the through the 90s, and the early 2000s was when it was at its best. It was at where you could, it was and was such a part of everything that we do. It incorporated everything that we'll get into tonight, which is the fashion and all those other good things as well. So thank you for taking time out to come and talk to us about the culture and what is hip hop and everything like that. Because it's those of us that when we grew up in it, it's nothing like it. I'm gonna be honest, it's nothing like it.
Not like it. Not like it.
It's not. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's stay in touch. You have my number.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest. I'm on this live to watch the rest of it.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I appreciate you. All right. So yeah, she couldn't come on. She said she was out and about and doing it, but she would still watch. So I definitely wanted to have her on, and make sure you follow her on Instagram because she's a wealth of knowledge. And she's a pretty dope chick too. That's right. Dope. I still say it. And that's part of the hip hop lingo. So when did you fall in love with hip hop? What was the first song, Leroy, that you were like, you know what? I like this thing.
That was honestly, it was the Sugar Hill Gang, the Rapper's Delight, hip hop, hop, a hibbit to the hibbit. That's the one that I first recall. And I think that stuck with me. That and probably Apache, Jam on It. Those two stick with me as far as like when I really think about when I really started listening to it and started singing. Yeah, it was those two. And there was even some before then, like I said, you had Africa Bambaataa, you had the two what was it, the five what was it, the five, was the Five Fresh Crew, something like that? It was something like that. The Furious Five. I'm sorry, the Furious Five.
Furious Five, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Yeah,
and
Grandmaster
that was
Flash
the
was
message. Yeah, that was the message. The first time I fell in love with hip hop, it was the Sugar Hill Gang. It was Apache, and it was Rapper's Delight, of course, because that was the first commercial rap. And when I say commercial, I mean that was everywhere outside of the boroughs of New York, because then you have our forefathers, and we'll talk about that, you know, Kool Herc and all of them who started it, you know. So I just in the Bronx, and ironically with Kool Herc, like they were, and Grandmaster Cass, I should say, he was. Let's talk about this quickly. So Rapper's Delight. And this is all by memory, and I love this thing. But Rapper's Delight was the first commercial success, right? But Grandmaster Caz, his raps were in Rapper's Delight. So they took pieces of his rap without his permission back then. It was totally different. And even because he was teaching him how to rap, and ended up being in the song, and of course he didn't get his credit. And that's what happens with the forefathers. Like when you create something from the ground up in the trenches, sometimes you don't get your credit, but then the person who has the commercial success starts getting the credit.
And so, and I guess we'll once we get further into it, they've said that about a couple, and I don't know if you've heard this too, giving credit to former, you know, the artists that kind of created stuff. And even when we get out to the West Coast, when we start to talk about that, they were saying how the song 99 Problems that Jay-Z wrote, came from that Ice-T had a song that was 99 Problems, and that's where he got the song from. So, and he never gave Ice-T credit for, because Ice-T talks about it. He never gave him credit for it. So so when you're doing something that's new, innovative, sometimes folks that get that commercial success or they get put on, so to speak, they're the ones that don't necessarily give credit to where they got the idea from or where they got the sound from, all those things. Because I love and I think I sent you a couple of the TikToks where you got the father and the son comes with these raps that always have.
So you talking about the white guys?
No. This is I don't know if he's black, but he's definitely maybe mixed or something like that. But he does two characters. He plays a father and then he plays the son, right? He's like, hey dad, I got this song for this new music, and it's supposed to be the Generation X, and they got these songs. But of course, the music is from old school. It's from all the songs that we know. And so the young one is playing the music, and then the father plays the original. So he's like, because so it's funny to see. I had to send them to you, but it's funny to see it because every song that the son comes with, the father has where it originated from.
And that's really how it is. I thought you were talking about it's this white son and dad, and the white son loves R&B music. So what he'll do is he'll have his son come on. He'll put the song on, whether it's Lauryn Hill, Jill Scott, whoever, and the father is like this. And he's like, "Oh, that's deep. It's so dope to really watch." But I want to give Grandmaster Caz his due, because from our generation, when we talk about the first time we fell in love with hip hop, most of our generation talks about Rapper's Delight. You and I just did. But Curtis Brown, who's better known as Grandmaster Caz, Casanova Fly, is an American rapper, songwriter, DJ. He was a member of the hip-hop group, the Cold Crush Brothers, from 1979 to the mid-'80s. And he is best known uncredited for writing Big Bad Hank's raps on 1979's hip hop single, The Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight. Because even he says Casanova, like that's not even his name. So he didn't even think to change the name. He just used his same name. So I definitely wanted to give that credit, because oftentimes people be like, oh, look at these old rappers. And I forgot, I don't even want to say his name. What's the rapper now that came out and talking about all of these older rappers look broke, they're this and that. And it's because of reasons like this, because they started it from the trenches, but they didn't have the success, the commercial successes now. So let's talk about some elements of hip hop. Breaking, MC, graffiti art, DJing. DJ was much popular than the rapper back in the day. Beatboxing, the fashion, the language, the knowledge, the entrepreneurship. You know, let's talk about all of those things. How did hip hop influence you in the 80s as far as how you spoke, how you dressed, what you listened to? How did it influence you? Because I know it did. I know it influenced me without a shadow of a doubt. When I'm talking about haircuts, asymmetrical haircuts, I had it this way at the top, then I had it shaved in the back, then I had it long in the back and short in the front, then I had this cocked to the side, I had this color, I had this stacked. See, in Jersey, we used to do the stacks. It's like the shorter hair is here, and then it goes like this. And it goes out and it stacks. Like I could move my hair and it's just stacked up. People used to say I look like MC Light. Then they would say Salt from Salt and Pepper. Then it would be whoever. And the way that I still talk to this day is still influenced by hip hop. How was it influenced with you? The name belt, the jewelry, you know, the jewelry that I was allowed to have. I talked about it on the last episode. My mom would not let my earrings be big. I couldn't have my names in the earrings. So now I got several pair of earrings with my name in it, several necklaces with my name on it, because I couldn't then. And that's the inspiration. And then it became mainstream, where I saw on Sex and the City, Sarah Jessica Parker wearing name hoops, bamboo earrings, door knockers with her name on it. And then it became trendy. But back then it was hood, it was ghetto, it was street, and you wouldn't see anybody rocking that. But now it's fun. It's, you know, it's just totally different. But how did it impact you growing up and how you dress and talk?
Well, it didn't. I guess as far as the dress, it really didn't, because I wasn't all that into the baggy jeans, the oversized, you know, the that kind of stuff. Now, there were some things.
They weren't baggy back then. Remember, they were tight. They weren't baggy back then. In the 80s, they was wearing them tight. What they just had it down with the belt.
It wasn't necessarily, I guess. Well, it kind of when it first started in the 80s, you had the Levi flavor jeans. That was probably part of it. You know, now that I did, because I did want the different flavor jeans, and I remember having that to have for school and stuff like that. The way, I guess, the other part of that too, and I don't know if that was hip hop or not, but I think I told you about the jackets, like the Lakers, like you had you had the college jackets or the pro football jackets or basketball jackets that you would wear. Like I had a Lakers jacket. I forgot what they called them.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was inspired. Was that inspired by hip hop though, you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think part of that was I think because of, like I said, because at that time there wasn't anything else that you kind of latched on to until like that late 80s when FUBU came out. FUBU started coming out. You had the Adidas. Now the Adidas shoes with Run DMC, my Adidas, that was probably the biggest part of that. They wore the They wore the starter jackets. That's what it was. They wore the starter jackets. They had the starter jackets on. And then when you got into the 90s with NWA, they had the Raiders, the Raiders starters jacket. That was a part of it, became a part of hip hop, not initially, but that became a part of it. Like you said, having the Levi's, the different flavor Levi's, that was me. Having the gear shifted once FUBU started coming out, and you had LL Cool J wearing
that was the 90s. See, growing up, and it's interesting to have a conversation. I love it because you grew up in Maryland. I grew up in Jersey. So that was totally different. And Basine says the two-tone jeans, exactly. Like it was, see, in Jersey, we had Lee's, not Levi's. So ours were the flavor Lee's with the jacket. Right. So it was the Lee jean with the big patch on the back, the brown patch with the Lee. And I was the one that we sewed in creases. Like I was the one who was sewing in folks' creases with a needle and thread. First going to the ironing board, because in the 80s we would iron our clothes like for real. Like it would be a half a day event. Like it ain't no quick ironing. We sitting at the ironing board with the music on, and we're folding them leaves, and the crease, we're like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. When we going up there, so it's a sharp crease. So the sharp crease wasn't even good enough in where I'm from. I had to sew it in. So I took the needle and thread and went down the whole crease. So the crease is like permanently in there. So whoever wanted their creases permanently, I was your girl. I was going to sew in that crease for you. And my mom wouldn't let me have all the Lee jeans. Like I could pick a couple, but she was like, that's not going to be your whole wardrobe. But then the Adidas with the fat laces, and then Run DMC, where I know in Jersey, they used to put the sock under the tongue. So they would put the sock under the tongue. So do you know what I mean? Like take a sock, roll it up, and then put it under the tongue of the shoe and cross the laces like this, so they could be sitting up high. And then that's how, we would walk around. Well, not because I wouldn't. Most of the guys did that. I didn't do that part where they would walk around. And each time it was so crazy because the back of the heel, because the shoes weren't laced, guys would be flipping around in the back of I remember that growing up, the back of their feet would be flipping out of the shoe, because they wouldn't tie their laces. So they'd be dragging their feet, or it would be flipping out of the back of their foot, and it would be cool. And then of course, Kangos. This is not a Kango, this is a replica, but the Kango hats, the gold chains, okay, there you are. The gold chains, the Kangos, whether it was the Cap Kango, whether it was LL Cool J's trademark Kangos. And what was big in my neighborhood is the Gazelle glasses. The Gazelle glasses were everything. Sometimes the lens would be in there. Sometimes it wouldn't be. Sometimes it would be prescription. Sometimes it wouldn't be. That was like a uniform from where I'm from. Like the Kango hats, the Gazelles. Man, if you was a guy in the 80s and you walk past with the Gazelles on, it was on and popping. Like you were already fly. But it's so funny because I see some of the guys that were super fly and super fine. I see them on Facebook now. And I must say, a lot of the women have aged a little better than some of the guys, because if you have a fast life and you've been in and out of trouble with some, that will age you. But it would be the certain guys that they were crispy, smelling like, what, I don't know, it wasn't Drakkar back, cool water. Or the musk oils, the essential oils, and then you got that. But that was everything. Did you even, and I remember in the 80s, Leroy, you remember this, where the guys used to, and I don't know if they did it in Maryland, so you can tell me, they took the razor and cut their eyebrows?
I don't know if anybody did that. I didn't know anybody that did that. That
Yeah. So the split, and you guys, if you have never seen that, look up, the 80s hip hop. Like guys would get the razor in the barbershop and they would just slit like a line here and a line here. And that's what they would do. Yeah, and they would do that in Jersey. And I know Maryland is going towards the south a little bit. So I remember like a lot of the rap wasn't coming out of Maryland. You know what I mean? It started trickling down later on. But what about two finger rings? Do you remember those?
Say that again.
2 finger rings.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely the jewelry was a big part of the fashion, the hip hop fashion, that that I think all of us were a part of that. It didn't matter where you were with that. That was a part of, like you said, the gazelles, the Kangos. That became a part of, even like I said, the starter jackets as well.
Yeah.
That was that in that 80s. That when as hip hop was becoming more mainstream, that was when the fashion culture caught on, and you started seeing the stonewashed jeans, you started seeing the starter jackets, you started seeing a lot of the fashion aspect of hip hop taking up, and that became a part of the culture. And the culture is, like we were saying, it's more than just the music. It was the music, it was the language, it was the fashion, it was the demeanor that you had about yourself, it was the language that the language that you communicated with each other. It was who we were. In our communities and everything like that. It was the way that it was the way that we communicate. You know what I'm saying? It was the only way that we could, and almost liken it to, and folks may not get this, but I liken it to the tribes that we have in Africa. You know how different tribes had ways of communicating with each other. Each tribe had their own way of communicating with each other. And that's what hip hop was. Hip hop was, like you said, New York had their way of doing their things. Jersey had their way. Baltimore had its way. So each of us had our own tribe, and within our tribe was the culture. Was the culture that we had, and it was all under the umbrella of hip hop. But it was all our culture. It was all always our culture.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad that you said that. And that's what we learned in that class. And she took everybody through. And I love the fact that it wasn't just all Black folks in there, or Hispanic, as Latinx. It was, a little bit of everybody. So that's the part that I love. Like, learn this. And some people, that was the first time they had ever heard anything about it. Some people that weren't growing up in the culture or did not necessarily listen, it was brand new for them. Everything that she was saying, I remember some people was like, "Oh, really? What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, because I'm probably one of the oldest people in the class. Like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that." And it was so exciting. But hip hop started, in the 70s, as we talked about, in the Bronx. And they didn't know what it was going to become. It was something to do in the projects, in the yard part. They would have block parties. They would play music. They would have the DJ, because the DJ was everything. Like, the rapper was an accessory to the DJ. The DJ, the one who was playing the music, getting the crowd, hype with the break beats and all of that. It was the MC who would hype the crowd for the DJ. Like, the MC wasn't the star, and it was something to do, putting, it was a lot of Caribbean people in New York. So then you had the elements of Spanish speaking people in the Caribbean, and Black people, African American, right? It wasn't African American and it was Black, but to be able to come together in this Mod Podge sound and do that. And then, of course, people started breakdancing. Like, I'm just so glad that we were a part of this culture in real time. I talked about it last week, where I would go on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, or go to different areas of Jersey. And then if you go to New York, Times Square, all of that, in in those type of areas. And then in neighborhoods, you would see brown boxes cut up everywhere, where people were breaking the boxes down because that's where they did, I don't want to say broke dance. That's what they did. Break dancing was on those. Like, had you ever seen anybody like, and I love to know like the other cultures, like, did people do that in Maryland too? Like, did you see the brown boxes everywhere and you see it in real time where people would break dance?
Well, yeah, I mean, you had that going on. It where where you have the you had the one guy that had the beatbox, that had the not the beatbox, but had the big radio, and then you had those that break dance. I didn't break dance because I can't dance,
I
but
pop out.
but that would that would actually break dance, and it was, I mean, that was a part of, I think originally, think about it, that was the DJ, the real origin of hip hop was in, like you were talking about, in New York. It was the DJ, it was the MC, and it was the break dancers. That's what it was. The break dance, those that broke, that were break dancing, that would break dance. That was what it was comprised of. Think about the early hip hoppers, the early rappers. It was the DJ and it was the rapper. LL Cool J, who was Cut Creator. He had Cut Creator. Run DMC, of course, had Jam Master Jay. Fresh Prince, for those that don't know, Will Smith was Jazzy Jeff. He was Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff before he became the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
DJ Jazzy Jeff in the Fresh Prince. Fresh Prince was at the end, and then you had Grandmaster D with Houdini.
I don't know if Queen Latifah had a DJ. I don't remember her, but she might have had a DJ. I know MC Light had one. Of course, Salt and Pepper had Spinderella. I don't know if Big Daddy Kane had a DJ. He might have had one, but I don't know his name.
But then he had Scoop and Scrap Lover up there dancing. Like, they were more his other act in his group, if you will.
Yeah, and then who was D Nice the DJ for? Who was because D Nice DJ
Boogie Down.
He was with Boogie Down. He was with Boogie Down production. Yeah, he was with Boogie Down production. Heavy D and the Boys.
Yeah.
Eric B, of course. Oh man, I can't forget Eric B from Eric B and Rakim. You know what I'm saying? So you had all of these, the DJs, like you were saying, they were the main attraction, but then the rapper kind of added to the DJ. Yeah, because he was the one that added the lyrics to the lyric, was the lyrics of what happened. So the DJ kind of fell off as hip hop grew. For whatever reason, they just started not having the DJ. It was just a rapper. And as it grew, and then that was kind of it. I mean, a couple of the DJs kind of, still, I mean, Jazzy Jeff and D Nice are probably still around from that era,
because he was a rapper, then he became a DJ, and that's the thing, it's so interesting when you think about it. And I wanted to touch on something you said. You talked about every time somebody sees the 80s and sees the movies, and we see people walking around where they had the box, we used to call it a box. It didn't start being called a boom box until later, but we used to call it a box. And the reason why, many people don't know this, but the reason why guys held the box on their shoulder is because it took about 162 D batteries. And when you put the box on the ground, it would drain the batteries quicker. So that's why people started carrying them on their shoulders, because it's so big, you can't carry it like this. So they started carrying it here. Most people don't know, because once you put in it's like D batteries, y'all, are the biggest batteries. And it would be like 12 or 20 batteries that you would put in. And as soon as you put it on the ground, it would drain the batteries. So think about the batteries you had to buy. It wasn't no dollar store, you go buy the batteries. It was, you go to wherever store to go get the batteries. So they would hold it up here because it held the charge, if you will, long enough. Many people don't know that. I want to shout just some people out. Sweet Tea, Roxanne Shante, Queen Latifah, MC Light, Salt and Peppers, because the ladies are first. Moni Love, LL, Run DMC, my boy Heavy D, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Eric B and Rakim, the Sugar Hill Gang. We talked about Houdini, UTFO, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Dougie Fresh. We got to talk about that. And Slick Rick, Public Enemy, Kool Mo D. And I was thinking about people off the top of my head. And these are the names that came up first. De La Soul, Jungle Brothers, Gangstar, Tribe Called Quest. Then we get into Wu-Tang and Pac and AZ and Nas and all of them. But I want to talk about De La Soul because they just lost Dave. They recently got eligibility to have their music streamed last week. All of this time it wasn't streaming. And when I was watching Pete Rock's Unsung, someone said something about them as him and CL Smooth. And this was just when you think about the rapper and the producer or the beat maker. He said they fit together like shoes and socks. Think about that. Like they came together like shoes and socks. And a lot of them knew what was gonna happen and what was gonna say, what they were gonna say. And in the recent party for De La Soul having their music streamed with Dave Chappelle through, I sent Leroy the clip with Queen Latifah, Moni Love, Drez. It was like a whole bunch of people. And I love the fact that Moni Love and Queen Latifah, it wasn't planned. D Nice was the DJ. He played Unity, UNITY. Latifah started singing. All of a sudden, you hear the beat drop, and it's ladies first. Moni Love was going insane. And I love the fact that they were so in sync because they were part of that native tongue, right? Where they were the only women with Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, and, Tribe and all of them. But I love the fact that when she was rapping and how she just passed the mic and it was like muscle memory, like it was going around. It was viral. It was going around everywhere. When you first saw that, and I was like, did you slide the slides? What did you think when you saw that? Did it instantly make you happy?
No, but what it is it's a vibe. Hip hop has always been a vibe, and it's infectious. You can get like you said, we would go crazy hearing a Queen Latifah and Moni Love talking about ladies first, talking about UNITY, all Salt and Pepper, all of those artists back then, because it gave you this, it's energy. It was energy. Yeah. It was energy. And that's what hip hop is. Hip hop is energy that we as a community got, and we fed off of the DJ. We fed off of the lyricists to hear them. I mean, come on now. Nobody could spit like Queen Latifah. That's why she's the queen. You know what I'm saying? And to hear her, this many years later, and to see her drop like that, her Moni drop it like that.
I was going off. My daughter was like, "Are you watching that clip again?" I was watching it. Moni Love had posted some. Everybody had posted some, but they had them from different angles. I was watching everyone, and I was so hyped and happy, like that. How Moni Love was jumping around. That's what my insides were doing, and I was like, "Whoa!" My daughter would go past she'd be like, "You listen to that again?" I'm like, "You don't understand what this, this does."
It was energy to us, and it was. I mean, to this day, when you and I, like we said, we listen to old school hip hop. It gives you that feeling. The newer hip hop doesn't. I don't even call it hip hop, just the rapping or whatever. It doesn't give you that. It doesn't have that energy behind it. Yeah. It doesn't have that passion behind it. It doesn't have that, man, you had, to be in a room with that going on.
Yeah. I want to be there so bad.
Yeah. I mean, and you just like, man, but to see the talent of Queen Latifah, of MC Light, and each of them, and here's the thing too, Kendéll, is they each had their own. Everybody had their own style. Nobody was copying off of somebody else. You knew if it was Queen Latifah. You knew if they had their own sound. You knew if it was LL Cool J. You knew if it was Run DMC. you could Big Daddy Kane. You knew
Big Daddy
as soon as the mic start or the music started, you knew who that hip hop artist was.
Yes. And when you talk about Dark Gable, Big Daddy Kane, come on now. And I love the fact that everybody put their element. I'm sorry, Big Daddy Kane's still fine. Like all these years in his 50s, he's touring around with the New Jack City play. He's still on Instagram, still looks good. These men have maintained, and so have the ladies. LL still looks great. Big Daddy Kane, Salt and Pepper, Moni Love look phenomenal. Queen Latifah, we already know. And you think about all of these artists. Chuck D still looks great. You know, I'm just thinking about all of them. Will Smith still looks great. Even the brothers from De La Soul, the Jungle, like I'm just thinking about even Rakim, he still looked like Rakim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have maintained in such an awesome way. And I'm looking at Salt and Pepper, they still are touring to this day. I got a chance, they toured with New Edition a few years back. I got a chance, my daughter got a chance to see Salt and Pepper live.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's dope to me. You know, not only because they done seen New Edition, you already know, we ain't even talk about that. But for them to be able to see Salt and Pepper, and I'm looking at my youngest daughter, she don't sit down the whole time. Like she is up doing it. And I just look at them still on tour, and I'm looking at a list of the rappers who passed away. I can't even read them. That's how many passed away. You know, we know from that generation, Scott LaRock, Trouble T. Roy from with Heavy D, Eazy-E, Tupac, Biggie. Then you have Big Pun. You have I can't even really honestly name so many people. And I think about Ecstasy from Houdini, who passed. I think about Dave, we just said, from De La Soul, passed away. Kango Kid, this is Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and he passed away of colon cancer. Interesting thing is he and I were in conversation because he was diagnosed with colon cancer, and then I believe a few weeks later, or maybe a month, unbeknownst to me, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. He started getting better. We were having in conversation where we were going to get the word out about colon cancer awareness. I still have the messages. I still have his phone number, and he was healing, and then it took a different turn, and he was back in the hospital, and he passed away. So that already just messes me up. And he was still touring and still very much relevant. I think about Roxanne Shante. She is on the Rock the Bells network, which is LL's network, where, you know, all things hip hop and rap. She has a show on there. And I'm just looking at, I can't even name. If you can think about what who your favorite rapper was, and of course we lost Nipsey, and just so many different rappers, especially in this generation. If you can name your favorite rapper, or you can think of someone who passed away, you know, honor them, celebrate their legacy in this music. If you see this list, it's just, I can't even look at it. It just goes on and on and on and on. I'm not sure what happened to Brother Leroy, but he should be back. But I definitely wanted to take a moment to just celebrate 50 years of hip hop. 50 years of anything is amazing, right? So just to be able to celebrate 50 years of hip hop is powerful. It's powerful because where do you think about it? A genre where they thought it was just noise. They thought it was just annoying. People thought that hip hop wasn't going to last 6 months. People thought that it was garbage. People thought it was just of the hood for the hood. You know, people just thought so many different things. And just like a new genre of music, people thought about that with, they say, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, when a new genre comes. But this time it was even different because they were saying rap was noise. It wasn't music. I remember the times where they were saying that. And the people, old people, like, what you listen to hip hop, bibbity bop, and it sound like noise to the older generation, but it sound like the truth to us. And we knew every lyric, we rapped every rhyme, and it was just a point in time that stays with us. Anytime I'm in the car and I'm listening to my playlist or Sirius XM or a radio station that plays old school rap, and something comes on, oh, I'm hype. I'm hype in the car. Just know if you're in the car with me, I'm rapping every lyric. I'm getting hype. I'm dancing. I'm whopping it out. I'm doing it because it's a happy place. Like when you hear that, it's so nostalgic. And some of the lyrics, if you hear the message, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Ha, 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 ha. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Ha, 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 ha. Come on. If you listen to that song is like almost 10 minutes long. But listen to the words. They're still relevant. Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage. No, you just don't care. And you think about having no rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies are around with a baseball. If you hear the lyrics, people are still living that way. When you talk about homelessness and you talk about people struggling and you talk about all of that, it's still poignant. It's no different than Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. It's still that poignant to what's happening. And if you listen to a lot of it, you know what I mean? In the beginning, we were just singing Round the Way Girl, you know, with the new edition Bobby Brown button on your sleeve. And you're talking about bamboo earrings, at least 2 pair. I cannot wear a pair of bamboo earrings without thinking about that song. So it always takes you back to a place and time. When I hear Heavy D in The Boys, and I think about when he wore that Coca-Cola on Mr. Big Stuff's video, that Coca-Cola sweater, and that was part of the hip hop culture where I'm from. I used to dance on this show called Dancing on Air, which was out of Philadelphia, but then it went later on to the USA Network, and it broadened its horizons and it was everywhere. But I remember when I was getting ready to dance on Dancing on Air, we couldn't have any emblems that said Coca-Cola or advertisement. But I remember I was like, I want that sweatshirt that Heavy D had on, because it was the thing. You know, people were wearing that. People were wearing like these Gucci t-shirts. Now they used to be, they were really inexpensive back then. And I remember I had a pink one and it had the Gucci emblem on there. Leroy is back. I'm not sure if you heard. Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard.
Calls coming in, it doesn't knock me out, but it knocks the volume. I can't hear, so I've got to go all the way back out and then trying to get back in. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But I talked about a lot. I even talked about some of them that passed away, if you can name some of them too, but I talked about some of them that passed away, and I talked about how from UTFO Kango Kid, how I was diagnosed with colon cancer a few weeks or a month after him, and he was getting better, and we were talking about coming together to get the word out about colon cancer awareness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm just thinking about like Heavy D, you know, you think about all of these people, and you hear, I was talking about how you hear some of the songs, Leroy, and it takes you back to the place. And I talked about the message being just as poignant as What's Going On by Marvin Gaye.
But see, that was the thing about hip hop. Hip hop also, it was the way that we got messages too. The way that we learned about things, because I was thinking about that today, because I was thinking about, was it De La Soul that had the song? I know they were on the song about Jimmy, wearing the Jimmy hats.
Buddy, my buddy, come on. B-U-D-D-Y, just come on, my buddy.
even with salt and pepper, let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. And what you had this innovativeness that was ingrained in the way that we learned about certain things, and that's the beauty of hip hop. It taught us some of the things that, like you said, Marvin Gaye song, "What's Going On," all of those, the messaging behind that. And I was talking about that earlier this morning with the video that I did. What's your message? Hip hop had a message to it. When you think about, Tribe Called Quest, you think about others. It was the way that we thought about what was going on in the world. It was the way that our community communicated about what was going on in the world. It was the way that these particular artists gave us information about how we learned about what was going on in the world. And I think it was either Chuck D. It was one of the. It might have even been my pastor too, but or Keros One as well. That they talked about that. They talked about it was our way of hip hop was the first way, really almost the first way of us being able to communicate how we felt about the different things that were going on in the world to us and what it meant to us. So though, that's what hip hop meant, and hip hop meant to us growing up, because we learned about certain things because of the hip hop artists, because of the messaging that they gave to us. All of that. I mean, though to me that sticks out. And like you said, when you think about, I mean, we got our fashion from them.
I think about when you're talking about the meaning. I remember being 18. I think I was in my first year of college, and I remember when Salt and Pepper's Expression came out. Express yourself. And in the words, express yourself. You got to be you and only you, babe. Express yourself. Let me be me. Express yourself. Don't nobody tell me what I cannot do, baby. Express yourself. And like, I love Salt and Pepper for always having an anthem. And when you're a young girl and it just starts talking about, will the real you please stand up? When they said, will the real Salt and Pepper stand up? They're talking about how people are other people, and you see this person, you want to be like this person, that person, you want to be like that person, and talking about express yourself, be you how you want to be. You know what I mean? Shine. You're good enough in that way, in that light. And think about it, for an 18-year-old, I had the album. I was like, express yourself. And every time I hear it now, I can see me in my room on my record player, because I had a record player. I still got one now, but it ain't the original, right? And I just remember that. And then, we learned so much, and it's so impactful. Like, people don't even realize it. Like, I think about Brand New Funk with Fresh Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. I remember on the stage at a talent show in high school doing that song where I had a hat on, and my back was turned, and I was pretending like I'm mixing. Yo, Jay, rock the beat with your hands. And I was like, and then I had a cap on with my hair up. And the boy Troy and his brother Ray, I think they were in the group Troy was Fresh Prince, and I was the DJ Jazzy Jeff, but I was in the back. And then I turned around. None of my friends knew I was going to be in the talent show. So then when it says, yo, Jeff, rock the beat with your hands, I take off my cap and I turn around. They'd be like, oh, that's Kendéll. And I'm like, and I think about these memories of being in talent shows and dancing, and just it brings back such a happy time. Do you feel that way with hip hop? Like, it brings you joy?
Well, like I said, even the go back to the video clips that you sent us, it was a vibe. Even with hip hop going from the DJ and the rapper, then you throw in the dancers, because then it became having the dancers with.
Come on.
So we learned dances from there. I don't know if you remember. Well, I know you probably do, but the Pee Wee Herman.
Oh, the Pee Wee in a while.
Yeah. So there were these dances that came out. To this day, you can put on Kid and Play, and everybody's gonna want to do that.
Kid and Play, that whole and I want to talk about them. Salt and Pepper, Kid and Play, Special Ed, Kwame. You know what I'm talking about? Your mom's in my business. Tell your mom to mind her business. What's his name? I can't think of his name. It begins with an S. No. Mom to mind your business. What was that? Oh man, what was that? Oh, I can't think of his name. Tell your mom to mind her business. What was his name? Oh, do you remember that song?
Yeah, I'm trying. I vaguely remember, but I can't remember who the artist was.
K-Solo. Tell your mom to mind her business. And then, but I'm just thinking about how they were in that crew with Herbie Lovebug. It was, Salt and Pepper, Kwame, all of them, and let's talk about that before we in the cruise, because we had crews. Like you had the native tongue.
Not even cruise. Before you talk about cruise, you could talk about the country and the different hip hop forms that were in the different countries. The hip hop that we had here in this north region, this north east region, wasn't the same. And we didn't even talk about Uncle Luke down south.
I was talking about the crews where rappers had their rap crews. Like they had, it was Big Daddy Kane, and he was with Cool G Rap.
I get what you
with that. Yeah, that's
I get what you're saying about that, but I'm talking about, and I get what you're saying but that's just the East Coast thing. I'm talking about how hip hop was around the country.
No, they had crews, and that wasn't just East Coast. I just want to make sure I shout out that how people work together in unity. Like if you put me on, then you put him on, and then you're all there together. I love that about hip hop. I'm not talking about, and then there was crews. NWA was a crew, wasn't they?
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about crew. I'm talking about the sound. But I get what you're saying. But what you're talking about is the East Coast. The East Coast, because that's all that I really knew. I didn't know anything about I could tell you about Uncle Luke and all of them down south. I could tell you about, like you said, the NWA and them. Those were the different dynamics within the East Coast. Yeah, you had you had the New York crew, but even within that, you had the Bronx. You had you had the South Bronx. You had Brooklyn. With some of the other boroughs that are there, where and you got like 7 boroughs.
Staten Island, when it comes to Wu-Tang, you had Staten Island, Shaolin.
Yeah, you had all of those. Even within that, they each put each other, like you said, they each put each other on. But I can't think of in those other areas where you had so many people that came out. Now maybe the West Coast, that came out of that, because New York was the hub of hip hop here on the East Coast. Yeah, where most of the hip hop came out of New York. That's just, when you think about the hip hop groups, you think about the crews, Wu-Tang, because even Wu-Tang broke out into their individuals. Jay-Z was from New York. Most of what you think about hip hop, they came there. Most of the artists came out of that New York area.
And they had the firm with, it was Nas, AZ, Foxy Brown. And AZ still looks amazing too, by the way. If you follow him on Instagram, I'm like, these people, what are they doing? But then you want to talk, before we end, you want to get into, I wasn't really big into Southern rap. Started happening like when I was already grown. That wasn't like part of my growing up period in childhood. But then it expanded to Midwest. You got my boy Common, even Kanye. Then you got the Andre 3000 and Big Boy, and all the amazing rappers in Atlanta and down south. Then you got the Florida rappers. You talked about Luke and all of them, and then you talked about West Coast. Were you into like?
But Luke was as big in the 80s, in that late 80s, 90s as everybody else.
I'm saying no, but that wasn't my judge.
Right.
Like that wasn't my judge. But I know that some of our viewers, they probably love that. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that. Because that wasn't.
No, that's what I'm saying, because that's hip hop though. Hip hop had that's how it grew into it, because Luke I mean, he's probably the biggest one from down south that I can think about, especially during that time.
Yeah,
It was Luke and the Two Live Crew, you
but yeah,
know.
they
And
were doing
then,
their thing though. He had ownership of. I know Luke
yeah,
had
right,
ownership of everything. You know,
yeah,
he was a very smart businessman. Luke was. He had, even when they told him, when they tried to censor him, he was one of the main vocal voices that talked about censorship and how it was wrong. And they told him he was that one that wanted to express himself as he wanted to, and he was one of the pioneers for that, Luke. So we definitely got to give him a shout out, even to the point where they told him, it on this soil, you can't make this type of music, or you can't do this, it'll be censored. Guess what he did? He bought a boat and he took it out to sea in Miami and was like, I'll record on this boat. That's brilliant. Like, you're not on the ground. Like, that's brilliant. So although I didn't listen to the music, I respect his business mind. Like, he has a very good business mind, and folks love Luke and the Two Live Crew. They did.
yeah. And well, I don't know. Well, they like the music, but I think it was the booty shaking more than it was.
I didn't prefer to look at that because that wasn't my thing. So
I can speak for the fellas. That.
That's why he was like, wait a minute, Luke.
You knew what you was gonna get when you saw a Luke video, a Luke and Two Live Crew video. You knew what you before
Don't
all this stuff.
You didn't get it.
Let me tell you, y'all listen real close. The Gen X's and all y'all got this Instagram stuff and everything like that. What before y'all was on Instagram show and everything, Uncle Luke had videos.
Man, I did used to watch his reality show when he had the reality show way after with his wife, the lawyer, with his ex-wife. I did used to watch that. It was very entertaining.
I mean, and even when you get out to the West Coast rappers, and when they started to have their kind of came mainstream in the 90s with and that was NWA put the West Coast on onto the national map.
Yeah, because NWA took the world by storm. They were unapologetically them. They were talking about issues that were happening right in their neighborhood, like the song "Boys in the Hood," where later on became a movie. They were because a rapper is a reporter of their area, of their neighborhood. They are reporting what they see in their area, and they're reporting. Like in the 80s, it was more braggadocious. Check out my chain, check out my girl, check out my earrings, and it was just like a swag, a braggadocious type thing. And then and then of course, and not all that way, because in the 80s, we still had the message. They were still talking Public Enemy. We were still KRS-One. We were teaching it now. So it wasn't all about that. Right. It was, KRS-One was teaching, Chuck D was teaching, Grandmaster Flash, a lot of them, even the party rappers, we were still teaching. Then you had the West Coast where they're telling you about what's happening in the hood. You understand what's going on in the hood. And then you got Snoop, and then you had, it took off. It took off. It ran from the East Coast. It touched the Midwest. It went over on to down south to Houston. It went to Atlanta. It went to Florida. It went out west. And then, like Leroy said, it went overseas. And I want him to really talk about that. But it went everywhere. Like rap is and hip hop. It was called rap. It was called hip hop. But hip hop is the elements where everything plays a part to it. And I'm looking at my shirt like this was like, imagine somebody walking down the street with this on right now. That's how people were walking around. Walking around like this. It looked like you get ready to go on stage, but it really is just how people were walking around. And it didn't look strange. Leroy, I wanted you to talk about, because you put up a great point, and you were talking about overseas and how rap has affected. Can you talk about that? And we're going to end.
That was the great thing that I think that has happened to hip hop, because no one was expecting it to have this global effect that it has. And we're not just talking the music. The music was just the beginning. We talk about the culture, everything that we've been talking about tonight, the culture of it, the clothes, the language, the what do you call it? The calligraphy, the writing, the graffiti writing, all of that has been embraced globally. And that's why it took off in that late 80s, early 90s. That's what made it become so popular, because people saw the fashion, they saw the music, they saw as we were saying earlier, they felt the vibe, the energy of this thing that was created, that has so much robustness about it, that people didn't, they thought it would fizzle out. They thought it would, okay, it's just a fad, it's going to be, but it gravitated to being beyond the borders of this country and moving into other countries. And that's why it's in the position that it is today, just because of that global connection, that global energy that hip hop has. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it has, you can look at commercials now from anywhere. You can go to any country and look at commercials and see a hip hop influence.
But check this out. And I don't know if you've seen it recently, and I don't know if you want to consider her a hip hop artist or not. She's maybe a modern day hip hop artist or whatever. But Cardi B and what's his name? What's the young man's what is it?
Offset. Her husband.
They have a McDonald's commercial talking about the Offset and Cardi B.
Their picture is big as day on it. You go to McDonald's, to the drive-thru, I want my daughter, huge picture.
That's what hip hop has come to, y'all. It is as big as McDonald's, which is a global corporation.
Yeah. And I want to shout out MC Hammer.
Right, we didn't even mention Hammer. He's part of the West Coast. He's part of the West Coast.
But I have to shout out Hammer because people were calling him sellout. People were calling him whitewash. People were dogging him because he had endorsement. He was one of the first to have endorsement deals with the British Knights. They were calling him everything. And now look how many and he went broke helping people and his crew and doing all of that, right?
Sure.
So I need to give him a shout out for that. They dogged him and said that he was selling out and his rap wasn't authentic and blah blah blah, and he's taking endorsement deals and this is supposed to be raw. Look at how many rappers have endorsement deals right now.
Exactly. And even
with a flashlight for an endorsement deal.
Right. I mean, and probably in the beginning stages of hip hop, I can really only think of Run DMC, and theirs didn't even come. They didn't even really have an endorsement deal. They just wore the shoes. I think they eventually got one with the song My Adidas.
Yeah.
That was able to give them that global exposure that hip hop came to gain through that. Getting two things I think that did it. Run DMC, and this is why they were such pioneers. They had the tennis shoes, Walk This Way, and the Adidas, the whole Adidas. That was another part of the fashion, was the Adidas.
I got an Adidas sweatsuit still to this day. Come on, I got my jean jacket where I went to an 80s party. I spray painted it. That's what we used to do back in the day. I painted it, put my name on it. So Run DMC was everything to me growing up. They were. Like, I can think about my surprise 8th grade graduation when we were 2 years ago. A friend of mine, we was out there tearing that grass up. It's so many memories. So you're right.
I mean, the My Adidas, and then the Walk This Way, the remake that they did of Aerosmith's song, two biggest hip hop songs ever. And it was the first time that King of Rock, for y'all young ones, go back and listen to that King of Rock album from Run DMC. And you see that it was a reason why that title was so appropriate, because they came out and they said they wanted to have some bangers, and they're gonna call themselves the King of Rock. They would call themselves the Kings of Rock, but they were rappers that infused R&B or hip hop, R&B, rock all together in that album. All of that was on that one album, and nobody had ever done that before. So that's what hip hop was, and that's how big hip hop had become, because it had been infused with other genres of music. That's why you can see a Puffy that infused hip hop and R&B. That was done before Puffy was
LL
Run
did
DMC.
I Need Love. He did it. What I Need Love. That was
right. Him and Heavy D. Heavy D did
Heavy D,
what was his?
Nothing But Love, or Now That We Found Love, or he
No.
had a lot of songs.
Because I think it was only two. I only remember two.
I
and
like
it was,
it. Is it
no,
good?
he had a slow rap too. What was the name of the slow rap?
And why you thinking we got to shout back out the Fat Boys?
Absolutely.
And we got to shout out with Fubu and Carl Kanai. Every rapper, LL was one of the main ones who, if you had a clothing line and it was for the culture, we got to shout out Dapper Dan. Dapper Dan was making all the clothes for everybody who was in that game. There's so many people that, are part of it. Vibe magazine, we got to talk about that. You know what I mean?
The magazines that came out of that source was another one. Was
Double
another
XL or whatever. Double XL.
Yeah. They were all a part of the culture. They gave you the culture. So when y'all talk about, I guess the hip hop now is nowhere near what it was when it first began. Oh, and it's grown over the 50 years. I mean, as anything would, it's grown over the 50 years.
Just like us.
And it's become more than what it really was.
Right, just like us, right? We're not the same as we were at 12. Hopefully we've evolved.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's what hip hop has done. I mean, I don't necessarily like where it is today. I like that foundational part of it, because it was more genuine. There was more energy about it. It wasn't necessarily about the money. It was about the, like we said, the energy. It was about our culture. It was us communicating with each other, talking about, talking about what was going on in the hood.
Yeah.
So what was going on in our community.
Yeah.
And how we learned certain things about growing up. It was just about growing, that was a part of our growth. It was hip hop. We grew up with hip. Think about it. We grew up with hip hop. Because it was I'm a little older than hip hop, but but the thing is, we grew up with it.
Mind playing tricks on me.
Think about it. I'm 54. I grew up with it. I was only a couple years older than it.
You look good for 54.
So we grew up together. So it was a part of all of my childhood and my adulthood. So I mean, it's definitely hip hop at 50, man. It is great to be able to look back at it and see how it's added, what it's done for the culture. People can talk, and there's some negative things about it that that we don't necessarily like about it, or didn't like about it, and still don't like about it. But I would say overall, the impact that hip hop has had on us as a culture, us as a people, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, me too. That's a good place to end. That I totally agree. And I just was thinking about other rap groups, the Ghetto Boys, Minds Playing Tricks on You. Think about that.
The South. Yep, that was part of that South.
Yeah.
Or Midwest.
Yes,
South and Midwest.
Yeah, because that was they're from Houston, and then like I said, Common from Chicago. You know, Common's his lyrics off the chain. You know, and I'm just trying to think of other because I want to make sure somebody's favorite rapper we didn't mention, and I know so definitely put your favorite rappers in the comments. And I'm trying to think of who else you want to shout out from the West Coast, the South. Outkast, Jermaine Dupri down there.
Did we mention Curtis Blow?
I have him on here. I hope I mentioned him. Curtis Blow.
I got him on my list too. Curtis Blow and EPMD. I got both of them.
Yes, EPMD. Because I was just doing a list off the top of my brain because I wanted to say, let me see who,
Yeah, and Biz Markie is a part of the New York sound and New York crew.
The Juice Crew. Him. Yeah. Marley Marr, Big Daddy Kane, Kool G Rap. Remember that? The Symphony? You remember that?
Yep.
Woo.
Yep.
And I was looking at and I was thinking about Heavy D, and he had that song where he had the collabo and Nobody Can Curse. Don't Curse. Remember that song? And it's just so the videos. We haven't even had time to talk about rap videos.
But that's the thing, the great thing that I loved about Eric being Rakim, because he was the rapper. He was probably one of the very few artists, him and Heavy D, because Hev didn't do it either. But they were very few artists, and Fresh Prince. Their rap was clean.
Yeah.
They didn't have.
I said it before. I never let the mic magnetize me no more because come on, biting me. Right. That reminds me of 10th grade. I could think of every song and think about a grade.
Yeah. And I mean, and then we didn't even get into the positive rap with self-destruction and everything that when they came together to do that. Poor Righteous Teachers. We didn't talk about we talked a little bit about Public Enemy, but we didn't talk about X-Clan. Come on, Leroy.
Wait, we can't have this a 2-hour show. We're getting ready to end this show for real, y'all. But let's just talk a moment for self-destruction. Let's just self-destruction. Let me tell you, I was clamoring to the TV every time that video came on, and videos were everything then. And to see all of those rappers in there talking about
MTV Raps. Remember MTV Raps?
BET Rap City.
Yep.
But that self-destruction, oh my goodness. Like, I want to play that video right now. That was so powerful. So rap was way more than just noise in the beginning, where they said it's noise, it's not really singing, it's not a song, it's not going to last. It has taught a generation of us certain things, how to be proud of who we are, how to look out for pitfalls and certain things. It was so much more than just partying. It really taught us certain things. Self-destruction, if you're not inspired by self-destruction, if you're not, I don't know what's wrong, because that right there, and like, if you look back at it now, they'd be like, oh, it's other stuff like that. But you have to keep in mind the generation. That was us.
And especially back then when self-destruction came out, it was purposeful. It was a message, because hip hop was getting such a bad name at that time.
Yeah.
You had a lot of, it's still going on today, but a lot of killings, a lot of shootings and all of those things, because you're talking the late 80s, early 90s, or in the 90s, into the 90s, when stuff was still going on in the community.
Yeah.
A lot of things was really going on in the community. Yeah, I think that was when the Rodney King thing had happened back then too, and you had NWA with the gangster rap type thing. So you had this clashing that was going on, and they felt compelled, those positive rappers, that something needed to be done, a message needed to be sent, that hey, look, we're destroying ourselves, we're destructing. We're going to self-destruct, because if we're not careful, we're headed for self-destruction. If you haven't watched that video, pull it up on YouTube and see the number of artists that were in that video, that were a part of that video.
D-Nice was there, y'all. A lot of people just knowing D-Nice now.
Mm-hmm. But most of the artists that we talked about, the major artists that we talked about today, were a part of that video. Heavy
Yeah.
D, KRS One.
Big
I
Daddy
think was Big Daddy
Light.
Kane. I think Big Daddy Kane was in there.
MC Light.
De La Cruz was in there. It was. I think Queen was in it. Queen was in it as well. Queen Latifah was in it as well too. Miss Melody.
Miss
Just
Melody was
all of the rappers that were about positiveness were in that video and a part of that song.
Yeah.
And the message that they wanted to be able to send
Yeah.
to us as a community. Like we said, getting the message out.
Yeah.
Getting the word out about who we were and what we were about.
Yeah.
What we needed to be about.
And then rap shifted. I want to name some more names, thinking about when rap shifted and Little Kim and Foxy Brown. Shout out to those, those ladies. Missy Elliott. You mentioned Eve, Method Man. You talked about Ice Cube. We said Nas, Slick Rick said him. You talked about Ice-T. My boy.
We didn't even mention DMX.
I just mentioned it. I just said it. How did we both just say it at the same time? That's scary. We both said DMX at the same time. Dark Man X. I love me some DMX. We talked about Grandmaster Flash. Some of y'all like Too Short out there. Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah, Warren G. Warren G. What's the one from what was the one from the what was the one from the West Coast? He sang the hooks. Nate Dogg,
DOC. We got Q-Tip and a Tribe Called Quest. We can't forget them. Busta Rhymes and Leaders of the New School. Let's talk about them. Melly Mel. We can talk about. I said Roxanne Shante and all the 18,000 Shantays that came out back in the day. Sparky D and all of them. I said Sweet Tea. Who else? It's so many. I hate to name the names because there's so many. And if I didn't say your favorite rapper's name or some of the pioneers, I'm so sorry because there's so many. But I want to DJ. What is that? Sharky. What was the Shy Rock or something? She was one of the first female rappers. But it's so many. So if we didn't mention your favorite rapper,
did we say the real Roxanne Shante?
Yeah, Shante.
Yo,
yes.
Rod Digger.
Oh gosh.
It's just I mean, hip hop at 50, man. It is just to be able to go back and look at it now as we're looking at it and we see just I mean, and we haven't even scratched the surface. There's so many more that we could probably talk about. We can't fit everything into this little time frame that we have when it comes to hip hop. And the impact that it has had on the community and the culture and who we are as a people, man. It's just, it's like we said, if I had to sum up hip hop in one word, it's a vibe. It's a vibe. It's energy.
It's energy. I love that.
It's energy and you can feel it. Like I said, that the old school hip hop that we're talking about, there's an energy about it. There's a captiveness. If you don't believe us, watch that video that Kendéll is talking about with Queen Latifah and Moni Love. And if you ain't feeling the energy from that just by watching it, you ain't even in the room.
Right.
And you watch it and you feeling that. Any of us that are from that era, we know what that vibe is. We know what that energy is.
Man, I wanted to be in the room, Leroy. We got to find a room where we can be in like that. We got to find a room that we can be in like that. I don't know if I mentioned Missy Elliott and all of that, Easy, all of that. But this was great, Leroy. And if we didn't drop the rappers that we missed, because we missed some, we can't name them all. So drop them in the comments. Tell us who your favorite is. Tell us, do you like the East Coast rap, Southern rap, Midwest? Do you like West Coast?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about. We didn't because we didn't even talk about Nelly and the Midwest.
Yeah, Nelly, because we talked some St. Louis. He was tearing up the charts. Let's not get into it.
Right, St. Lunatics. It's so much. So
out, he had everybody. When he came out, it's just so many. That's right. Nelly and the Lunatics. It's so many. And that was another like rap crew. So many. And I want to make sure everybody is serviced, and I can think of East Coast rap, some of my favorites. I can think of the vibe, I can rock with some of that. I can think about who rocking with Nelly, who wasn't out there to Snoop Dogg. Think about it. It's a vibe.
Before we go, you got to give your top five hip hop artists.
Oh no.
Go.
Oh no. I can't do it. I cannot do it.
Greatest hip hop artist of all times, KRS-One. I'm sorry. That's my number one. Eric B. and Rakim, Run DMC, Big Daddy Kane, and Tupac and Biggie. They are tied to me. Tupac and Biggie.
LL made an impact.
He's not better than. He's not to me. I don't put him. Yeah, LL's right. He's right there. But I put Biggie and Pop before LL. I put Run DMC before LL. I put who else did I say? Run DMC. I say definitely KRS-One and Eric B. and Rakim. Those are my top two. They ain't moving nowhere. But Run DMC. Big Daddy Kane. LL and Big Daddy Kane might be a tie, but definitely Biggie and Tupac are right there.
Ooh. And mine can shift, but I ain't have nobody throw no stones at my head.
But see, that's the same way that they talk when they talk about basketball. Folks want to say that Michael Jordan is the GOAT. They want to say that LeBron is the GOAT. I say, me personally, that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest basketball player ever. Period.
Into it. Period. So you in the show, and you in the show, in the rap show, in the hip hop show, and go ahead. You end everything.
All we say is this is hip hop, y'all. Hip hop we are hip hop. We are hip hop. We are that energy. We are that vibe. That is, I don't believe it'll ever go away. What the founders of hip hop created, it will always be there because it'll always live on through their music and what they created. From two turntables, a microphone, and a DJ, two turntables, and a rapper, came a genre of music and a culture.
That's hip hop. It makes us feel good. I needed this. It's been a very draining, emotional day for me. And I was looking forward to this all day because I knew it would be a happy spot. All right, y'all, drop in the comments what your favorite song is. What do you love about hip hop? When did you fall in love with hip hop? Let us know in the comments. All right, tell them what to do, Leroy, and we out.
Yep. First thing, you want to make sure you subscribe. Click that notification bell, you want to comment, and then most of all, you want to share it. I know y'all love this one, so share it with your friends. I know they hip hop heads too, just like so send it to them so that they can catch the vibe, because this is the vibe, y'all. Like I said, they can catch the vibe. Say, did you catch the vibe today? Did you catch the energy, hip hop energy today? And send them this. Say, well, if you didn't hear, let me send that to you. I'm gonna send this to you. Check it out. So that's what you need to do.
Check the vibe, y'all. Check it out. And I got one thing to say before I go. Engine number 9 going down the, I'm gonna lie. If the train goes off the track, pick it up, go to